Retired Captain Dennis Sadorra, former Army officer. 2 Iraq combat tours. I've got a background in special operations and specifically in psychological warfare. Call sign Oscar Bravo 1. Well, psychological warfare is the acronyms are PSYOP, and specifically the job involves population manipulation through shadow warfare. The goal of PSYOP is to sway a population of people through means of mass information, and their specific intent is to change that population's behavior. Well, PSYOP is used in the U.S. Army and the Air Force, as well as with the CIA in their SAD, or Special Activities Division, and it involves manipulating foreign populations, and typically that swaying is done through massive amounts of information towards a targeted population to sway them to be in favor of the U.S. or U.S. allies. And it can be used for other means as well, and those other means being inundating an enemy population with information and basically trying to break their will to fight and give up, surrender. And I think a great example of that was what happened in the Gulf War. It's pretty interesting to have recent history through the Gulf War, where over 50,000 Iraqi soldiers had surrendered and given up to U.S. forces and allies. And this was before the war even started. And a lot of it was because of the methods and tactics used by PSYOP. In fact, at the end of that war, General Schwarzkopf, he called the PSYOP the Jedi Knights of the war, and it was a great way to have a piece of history regarding the tactics and how they're used with a victorious outcome. Well, if anything, I have no access, because I'm retired now. I have no access to some sort of formal process. So this information is basically a whistleblower complaint, to the public that PSYOP officers are trained. They're trained at a special warfare school, and it's a place where all the trainees are told that these methods and tactics are only used for foreign countries. We're only going to use them on foreign countries. And, they emphasize any use of these methods on the American population was grounds for immediate imprisonment. So, since watching the news as of late, there's an obvious pattern going on in the media. And I just am compelled to expose that these methods and tactics of PSYOP from the PSYOP school are now being illegally used on our American population. American soil are actually being used on American soil right now. And our population is getting manipulated. And I got to warn the public, the way they're using PSYOP warfare tactics, it's through at least 90% of the American news media. And there are some in the published, like magazines and newspaper, but I think majority of it is what the news media is using, as well as online. There is a massive, it is just so prevalent online right now, a massive manipulation online that's happening. And it's very sad because, these things are detrimental to our country. Online. I think an example of this, a really good example of how they utilize PSYOP methods is a couple of years ago. There was it was called the Sinclair script video, and in that video, it exposed about 200 news station anchors, and basically they were all reciting the same thing word for word and getting that message across the country to numerous news outlets.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But we are concerned about troubling, irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
And it was exposing how it works. Basically, massive population manipulation through PSYOP tactics and methods through media, news media outlets. So it was a very good, example of how it's used, typically on other countries. But that was an example that was something that was happening here on American soil. So that should be concerning to all Americans. Well, instead of reporting facts, they're psychologically pushing Americans to a belief system, and that belief system has a political agenda. In fact, that political agenda is dangerous to our country. In fact, if you see what's happening with these riots in some parts of our country right now, such as Portland, they're a direct result of those PSYOP campaigns that are happening. Well, the political agenda, it's pretty easy to expose. To simply put, 10, 20, 30 years ago, Hollywood and leaders in the black community were vying for a photo op with Donald Trump. They loved the man. It was almost like they worshipped him. And, what happened to that? 8 years ago, all of a sudden, they turned their backs on him. They hate him. And they're using any tactics, including, these negative methods on our American population to turn anyone they can against Donald Trump. So it's a very sad time in our country right now. Things that, were at once illegal to do are now legal if you're in a certain political party. So that's unfair, and it's actually very dangerous. It doesn't matter, because they are using it, and they are manipulating Americans. People who maybe don't completely understand a full picture of what's going on, and are maybe easily swayed, and their behavior is changing, and it is a direct result of these methods and tactics. Well, if any message I would have for Americans is, I guess I have a couple things to say. I'll look in your camera here. You know what? Don't be gullible. Don't fall for their tricks. Be careful. They're trying to trick you. And if anything else, I would say is, wake up, America. Take your country back. So yeah, that's what I have to report, and I hope it's useful, and that's pretty much all I have to say. Oscar Bravo 1 out.